The scream came from the river. Not loud, not desperate. It sounded tired. I was halfway across the old bridge when I heard it. Thin as breath pushed through cracked lips. The Ravi River slid beneath me, black and patient, carrying Christmas lights from upstream villages like broken stars. The night smelled of wet stone and cold metal. Somewhere behind me, a dog barked once and went silent. The scream came again, closer this time. I leaned over the rusted railing. The water moved too smoothly, like something had pressed its palm flat against the surface. No ripples, no current, just darkness stretching away into itself. Then I saw it, a shape beneath the water, long, pale, unmoving, not floating, waiting. "Hello," I called, my voice cracking against the fog. The shape shifted. A face surfaced without breaking the water's skin, eyes open, mouth smiling too wide. The scream came from its throat again, softer now, almost gentle. "Merry Christmas," it whispered. My phone vibrated in my pocket. An incoming call from a number I didn't recognize. When I answered, the voice on the other end was my own, and it said, "Don't look down." I didn't tell anyone about the voice on the bridge. Some things feel fragile the moment you say them out loud, like they'll either vanish or grow teeth. I wasn't ready for either, so I carried it quietly like a stone in my chest, all the way back to my father's house. The gate creaked when I pushed it open. It always had. Even as a child, I remembered that sound, sharp and thin, like the house clearing its throat before speaking. The courtyard smelled of damp earth and old leaves. Christmas lights from the neighboring house blinked over the wall, blue and red reflections sliding across the floor like slow blood. Inside, the house felt colder than the night. Not temperature cold. Absent cold. I shut the door and leaned against it, listening. My heart thudded too loudly, as if it wanted the house to know I was there. The silence pressed back. Heavy. Watchful. "Get a grip," I muttered. My voice sounded wrong in the room. Smaller. Like it didn't belong here anymore. I dropped my keys on the table. They slid farther than they should have, clinking softly before stopping on their own. I stared at them longer than necessary, waiting for them to move again. They didn't. The power flickered. Just once. When the light steadied, I noticed the smell. River water. It clung to the air, faint but unmistakable. Mud, rot, something metallic underneath. I hadn't been near the river long enough to carry it home with me. I told myself it was memory playing tricks, grief leaking into my senses the way it did when I was tired. I went to my father's room. The bed was still neatly made. His glasses sat on the side table, folded, patient. For a moment, a sharp thought cut through me. What if he's just outside? What if he's come back and I missed him? The thought scared me more than it comforted. I sat on the edge of the bed and rubbed my face. That's when I heard it. Water. Not running. Not dripping. Moving. Slowly. I froze. The sound came from the wall behind the bed, the one that faced the river a good half-kilometer away. It wasn't loud. It was subtle, like fabric brushing against fabric, like something large shifting its weight. I stood up. The sound stopped. I waited. Counted my breaths. Nothing. I laughed under my breath. A short, ugly sound. "You're exhausted," I said. "That's all." I turned to leave. Tap. I spun around. The sound came again. 3 soft taps, spaced evenly from inside the wall. My throat tightened. I stepped closer, pressing my palm flat against the plaster. It felt dry. Solid. Normal. Then something pressed back. Not hard. Just enough to let me know it was there. I jerked my hand away. The tapping didn't return, but I didn't sleep that night. I lay on the couch with the lights on, watching shadows crawl along the ceiling as cars passed outside. Every creak of the house sounded deliberate. Every silence felt staged. Sometime near dawn, I heard voices outside. Whispering. I peeked through the curtain. 2 men stood near the gate, heads close together. When one glanced up, our eyes met. His face went pale. He pulled the other man away without a word. By morning, the village had changed. People spoke in lower tones. Doors closed faster. When I walked past, conversations died like candles pinched between fingers. Someone made a small sign under their breath. A prayer, maybe. Or a warning. At the tea stall near the road, I overheard my name. He was on the bridge last night. That's when it starts. I stepped closer. What starts? They stared at me like I'd spoken from underwater. One man shook his head. Nothing. Go home. I am home, I said. No one smiled. It was Mrs. Farzana who finally broke the silence later that afternoon. She stood at her doorway as I passed, leaning on her cane, eyes sharper than knives. You heard it early, she said. Heard what? She studied my face, then glanced toward the river, even though it wasn't visible from here. It doesn't call everyone at once, she said. It starts with the ones who listen. A chill crawled up my spine. Call who? Her grip tightened on the cane. The lonely. I wanted to argue, to laugh, to tell her she was wrong. Instead, I asked, what happens next? She hesitated. Then, very quietly, she said, next it starts to follow you. That night, the knocking returned. Not from the walls this time. From under the floor. Slow. Rhythmic. Like something counting its way closer. I sat upright on the couch, heart hammering, staring at the dark hallway that led to my father's room. From the darkness, a voice whispered. Soft, familiar, impossible. Ayan. It sounded like my father. And it sounded like he was standing very close. Closer than the walls should allow. After the voice said my name, I did what cowards and survivors often do. I stayed still and pretended the world hadn't changed. The knocking beneath the floor slowed, then stopped, as if whatever was down there had learned patience. I sat frozen until dawn, knees pulled to my chest, staring at the hallway. The darkness at the far end didn't move, but it felt occupied, like a chair you know someone has just stood up from. When morning came, it didn't bring relief. It brought confirmation. The floorboards beneath the couch were damp. Not wet sweating. Thin lines of moisture traced the cracks between the wood, smelling faintly of mud and iron. I wiped my fingers on my jeans and stood up quickly, heart racing. This isn't real, I whispered. The house did not disagree. I decided I needed people. Noise. Proof that I was still anchored to the village and not drifting somewhere darker. I showered, dressed, and stepped outside. The sky was pale, winter bright, painfully ordinary. Too ordinary. As I walked, I noticed the river even when I couldn't see it. A pressure in my ears. A low, distant hush, like breath held too long. At the market, conversations bent around me. Eyes followed, then slid away. A child stared openly until his mother pulled him close and turned his face. I bought bread I didn't need just to hear my own voice say something normal. Keep the change, I told the shopkeeper. His hand hovered, trembling. You should stay inside tonight. Why? He swallowed. Christmas is close. That was the first time the date felt heavy. Christmas Eve was tomorrow. I'd lost track of time, as if the river had quietly eaten my sense of days. I went to see Bashir. The old shrine by the river stood crooked and damp, incense smoke clinging to the stones like memory. Bashir sat cross-legged at the entrance, eyes half closed, as if he'd been waiting. You shouldn't be here, he said without opening his eyes. You know what's happening to me. He looked up then. Really looked. His expression shifted, not to fear, but recognition. It started early, he murmured. I felt anger rise. Started what? He stood slowly, joints cracking. You've heard the voices. Felt the water where it shouldn't be. I didn't answer. He took my silence as confirmation. It always begins with sound. The river learns you through listening. What does it want? Bashir's mouth tightened. To remember. He led me inside the shrine. The air was thick, damp, heavy with old prayers. Carvings on the walls showed figures reaching into water, their faces blurred by time. Years ago, he said, people made promises to the river. Offerings. Names. Silence. For what? For mercy. I remembered the bus. The children. The story everyone knew but never told straight. You think I'm being punished? I asked. No, Bashir said. You're being used. That night, the voices multiplied. They didn't shout. They murmured. Overlapping, soft, intimate. I heard them in running water, in the rustle of leaves, in my own breath. I heard my father again. Ayan, he said gently. You shouldn't fight it. I slammed my hands over my ears. You're not real. Silence followed. Then laughter. Low. Wet. Close. I backed into the wall and slid down, shaking. My phone buzzed in my hand. A text. Unknown number. You left us waiting. I didn't sleep. I watched the house instead. And the house watched back. By morning, the first object moved while I was looking at it. A framed photo of my parents, young, smiling, shifted on the wall. Just a centimeter. Enough to notice. Enough to know it wasn't my imagination. I stepped closer. The glass fogged from the inside. A fingerprint pressed outward, slow and deliberate, smearing condensation. I ran. I ran through the streets until my lungs burned, until the river's hush grew louder instead of fading. No matter which way I turned, I felt it beside me, beneath me, inside me. Mrs. Farzana stopped me again near the well. You shouldn't run, she said calmly. I grabbed her arm. Tell me how to stop it. Her eyes softened with something like pity. You can't stop what's already crossed over. What crossed over? She leaned close. The river doesn't stay in its banks on Christmas. It walks. That afternoon, the river rose without rain. Not a flood, nothing dramatic. Just enough to seep into alleys, to pool where it shouldn't, to leave footprints where no one had stepped. People locked their doors. Candles appeared in windows. Prayers drifted through the air, thin and frightened. As night fell, I felt the pull. Not physical. Emotional. A certainty settling into my bones, telling me exactly where I needed to be. The bridge. I tried to resist. I locked myself in the house, dragged furniture against the door. The walls began to weep. Water slid down them in narrow lines, tracing paths that led toward the front. The knocking returned. This time from inside my chest. A pressure behind my ribs, rhythmic and patient, like a second heart learning my pace. Stop, I whispered. The voice answered from everywhere at once. Come back. I screamed and stumbled outside, feet carrying me where my mind refused to go. The village was eerily still. No dogs. No lights. Just the sound of water moving where water shouldn't be. The bridge loomed ahead, slick with mist. Beneath it, the river gleamed black and alive. Faces surfaced. Not all at once. One by one. Children. Men. Women. My father. Their mouths moved together. You remember us. I shook my head. I didn't do this. No, the river said in my father's voice. But you listened. The bridge groaned beneath my feet. I felt something loosen inside me. Fear gave way to something colder, quieter, understanding. The river wasn't hunting me. It was inviting me. And somewhere deep down, a part of me was already stepping forward. The water rose to meet me. And I realized, too late, that the village wasn't afraid of the river. They were afraid of who it chose to speak through. The voices grew louder. And I answered. The river waited like a patient predator. I stood on the edge of the bridge, the night heavier than any darkness I had known. Mist curled around the iron beams like ghostly fingers. The water below shimmered, not reflecting the moon or stars, but faces. Pale, unmoving faces, eyes wide, mouths curved into impossible smiles. I wanted to look away. I needed to. But my feet were rooted, my mind lured by something I couldn't name. A voice, my father's, rose from the river. Not just him. Many voices now, overlapping, whispering my name, soft and intimate. Each syllable carried weight, memory, promise, warning. Ayan. I wanted to respond. My mouth opened, but the words died in my throat. Instead, I saw movement beneath the water, a hand breaking the surface. Then another. Hands, arms, heads. Children from the bus, Rafiq, strangers I'd passed on the streets. All pressing upward, reaching for me. I screamed, a sound swallowed by the fog and the murmuring river. The bridge groaned under invisible weight. Time warped. The air thickened. What had been a familiar structure, steel and wood, began to bend subtly, as if reality itself recoiled from the water. Every light in the village flickered in unison, and I saw windows illuminate faces that weren't there moments before. Faces like mine, pale and calm, smiling. "Come," they whispered. "Join us." I tried to run, but the river had already claimed my path. Each step forward felt heavier, my body resisting yet moving. My mind screamed that I wasn't supposed to go, that I could fight, but a strange certainty wrapped around me, cold and patient. The river didn't just want me to fall. It wanted me to understand. I looked down into the black water. My reflection stared back, pale, smiling, eyes wide. And then the surface rippled unnaturally, and the reflection spoke. My own voice, but slower, distorted, hollow. "You were chosen. You listened. Now you belong." A sudden, icy surge of water lifted me from my feet. Not forceful, but inevitable, like gravity had changed direction. I sank slowly, the river embracing me, filling my senses with memories that weren't mine. Children laughing, teachers shouting, parents crying. Flooded streets. Faces pressed to water's surface. All of them whispered in one voice. "Stay." I tried to resist, clawing at the unseen current, at air, at memory, at self. The water didn't fight me. It welcomed me. Every pulse of my heart was mirrored by a heartbeat in the river, an echo in the mist. My father's face drifted in front of me. Calm, gentle, inviting. "Don't fight," he said. "It's your turn now." My thoughts splintered. Fear, anger, confusion, acceptance. The line between who I was and who the river wanted me to be blurred. The river whispered through my veins, teaching, claiming, naming me in a language of drowned voices. And then I surfaced, somewhere between awake and drowning. The village stretched impossibly wide, distorted. Familiar houses twisted. Trees bent unnaturally. Shadows moved with intent, following me. Doors I had locked stood open, welcoming. Time flickered, seconds stretching into minutes, then snapping back violently. A scream tore through me, not mine. Mine was already gone. The river's choir surrounded me. Whispers became confessions. Murmurs became accusations. Every step I took felt like trespassing in both my life and death. "Join us," they cried. "You remembered." My own voice answered from the water. "I remember." The bridge buckled beneath me. Planks lifted and rotated like wings, warped and trembling. The water reached higher, forming hands that lifted me with gentle insistence. Panic seized me, then melted. Resistance seemed pointless. The river had claimed me not through violence, but inevitability. The faces beneath the surface smiled wider. Children, Rafiq, strangers, my father. And my own reflection stared back, serene, smiling, eyes wide. I understood. The river did not take lives. It collected them. Memories, voices, laughter, cries, all preserved beneath its black surface. And on Christmas, it demanded remembrance. Those who listened too closely were not punished. They became the river's next memory, its next voice, its next face. I felt my consciousness stretch and split. One part of me remained terrified, struggling to swim toward reality. Another part sank willingly, curious, cold, calm. The river enveloped me completely, whispering a lullaby stitched from every voice it had ever claimed. Above, the village watched silently. Not a single candle flickered. Not a single dog barked. The river carried its new voice away, invisible, inevitable. And in the stillness that followed, The bridge returned to its quiet, ordinary state. The mist receded. The night seemed normal. Only the water remembered. And now so did I. The morning after, the village felt unusually silent. Not the calm of a peaceful dawn, but the quiet of things waiting, watching. Windows stayed shut. Doors remained bolted. Even the wind seemed hesitant, brushing the leaves without sound. The Ravi River lay flat and dark, reflecting a sky that was too pale, too empty, as if it too held its breath. I was standing at the edge of my father's courtyard, barefoot, hands still trembling from the river's embrace. The memory of the night burned in my veins, the water's cold certainty still clinging to my skin. I knew, in some irrevocable way, that I had been changed. Not broken, not dead, but something else. Something that lingered between who I had been and what the river had claimed me to be. I felt its pulse beneath the soles of my feet, beneath the floorboards, beneath every breath I drew. The village woke slowly, as if someone had turned a dial. Children appeared, their voices clipped and careful. Shopkeepers arranged their goods mechanically, glancing over shoulders at the river as if it might rise again without warning. And above it all, the bridge, my bridge, stood ordinary, rusted, silent. No one spoke of the events, not directly. Yet every glance, every whispered tone, carried the weight of unspoken knowledge. The river remembered, and so did the village. I wandered to the market. Faces that had followed me with suspicion now avoided me entirely. Not out of fear, but out of recognition. They knew, even if I could not name it myself, that I had crossed the threshold and returned different. A woman selling fruits nodded once, almost imperceptibly. Her eyes said, "I know." I did not nod back. I could not. My tongue felt strange, as if it were learning a new language. One shaped by whispers, ripples, and shadows. Back home, the walls were empty. Nothing had moved in my absence. My father's room was untouched, yet it felt occupied, as if he, or something like him, had remained, waiting for me to return. I approached the bed, heart tightening. His glasses still rested on the side table, folded, patient. For a moment, I imagined him alive, smiling, giving a simple, ordinary fatherly scold. But then I felt the river's weight in the air, the subtle insistence in my chest. Memory is never gone. It waits for you. I opened the window facing the river. The water glimmered faintly in the morning light, placid, untouched. Yet beneath the surface, I knew, hundreds of faces drifted waiting for someone to remember them, waiting for someone to answer the call. For an instant, I glimpsed movement. Pale hands pressing outward, eyes wide, mouths curved into impossible smiles. And then the surface stilled, mocking my gaze, as though nothing had ever happened. That night, the quiet was heavier. The village, anticipating, shuttered their doors. Candles flickered in a pattern that seemed deliberate, not random. The air carried the scent of river water, faint but unmistakable, seeping into every corner, every crevice. I lit a lamp, its warm glow shaking against the shadows of my walls. Shadows moved in response, not casting themselves as mere silhouettes, but stretching, curling, forming shapes that waited for me to notice. I did. In the bedroom, I found my reflection different. My eyes were the same, but the darkness behind them was deeper, almost liquid, as if the river had left an echo inside me. My own voice sounded distant when I spoke, as if it were layered with countless whispers I could not understand. I tried to convince myself I was awake. I tried to convince myself I could walk away, live normally, as if nothing had happened. But the river had woven itself into me. Its memory, its inevitability, pulsed in my veins, reminding me that some thresholds, once crossed, are never uncrossed. Days passed, or perhaps only hours. Time had lost its usual shape. The village moved mechanically, performing their routines with careful precision, leaving no cracks for acknowledgement or questions. I wandered the streets, observing, but not participating. Every conversation I overheard carried a subtle undertone. Voices softened, eyes averted. Christmas lights blinked overhead, their reflections twisted in puddles as if each reflection were alive, rippling with hidden faces. The river's presence was a silent rhythm behind it all, reminding me, it waits. Always. I returned to the bridge one night, drawn by a compulsion I could not name. The mist had returned, curling like slow fingers along the steel and wood. Beneath the surface, I glimpsed shapes, pale and still waiting. The air pressed against me, thick and expectant. I stepped closer. My reflection in the water smiled. Not me, something that was me, shaped by the river, waiting for the next name to call. I whispered. My voice wavered, carrying a weight that was not entirely my own. I remember. The ripples spread across the surface, concentric and deliberate. I felt the river answer, not with sound but with sensation. It filled the space around me, the space inside me. And in that moment I understood. The river does not punish. It collects, it preserves. It claims, not by force but by inevitability. It waits for those who listen, those who notice, those who answer. And once it touches you, you are forever altered. I walked back through the village. The streets were empty, the lights dimmed. Windows reflected only shadows. The river followed, silently, beneath every surface. In my house, the walls no longer tapped, the floors no longer sweated, but the pulse remained. Beneath my ribs, beneath my skull, a constant, gentle reminder. You are not alone. You are remembered. You are the river now. Years will pass, or perhaps only nights. Christmas will return, bringing faint light to the village, but with it, the inevitable call. Faces beneath the water will rise, not violently, not desperately, but with the quiet patience of inevitability. And someone, somewhere, will answer. I do not know if I am safe, or if the river will call me again. Perhaps it already has, in ways I cannot perceive. Perhaps it waits, patient, at the threshold of every reflection, every silent night, every empty street. Perhaps I, too, have become part of the river's memory, echoing its inevitability, carrying its whispers to anyone foolish or curious enough to listen. And so, Christmas arrives again. Candles burn in the village, flickering against the shadows. The river glimmers, black and patient. And sometimes, if you are quiet enough, you might hear a faint voice. Not loud, not desperate, just waiting, soft as breath. Ayan. Remember. Because the river never forgets. And neither do I. Even now I feel it in the silence. In the still air. In the spaces where light and shadow meet. It waits. It remembers. And one day, inevitably, it will call again.